Hey everyone, it's Inigo here and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to make a video on verb type 2 verbs. I previously made a video on verb type 1 verbs and verb types in general, so if you're not familiar with verb types, go check that video out. Verb type 2 verbs, essentially any verbs in the Finnish language that end in DA or DR. They're all pretty easy to identify or very easy to identify and quite easy to use. I'll go over a few examples. There are some slight differences here and there, but for the most part, they're quite simple. So to start with, I've got imeroida, syödä, juoda, uida, kommentoida, saada, tehdä, and nähdä. I want to point out that tehdä and nähdä are slight exceptions because they end in a H and then a D and an A. But otherwise, all of the verb type 2 verbs will be used pretty similarly. So I've got an example, imeroida, which means to vacuum or to hoover, and I've conjugated that in the positive present and positive past tense, and negative present and negative past tense. So I'll go through those examples. I also want to say, I didn't say in the previous video, when I talk about present or present tense, this can also refer to the future. So in Finnish, there's no distinction between the current or present time and the future. It's really just you distinguish with the context. So when it comes to using the verb in the present, known in Finnish, or present tense, you can use that in the future as well. You just need to add context. So you might say, tomorrow I do this. But yeah, future tense and present tense, you use the verbs in the same way. So I'll go through my example imeroida. So to conjugate in the present positive, it's minä imeroin, sinä imeroit, hän imeroi, me imeroimme, te imeroitte, he imeroivat. This one's quite simple, and most of them are quite simple. So all that I've done is taken away the D and A on the end, and you will always take away the D and the A when you're using verb type 2. You're left with imeroi, and then you just put on the personal endings on the end. So minä imeroin, I've put an N, which indicates minä or I. I'm doing the action. Sinä imeroit, the te or T on the end signifies you are the actor, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this one's quite simple, but as I explained, tehdä and nähdä are slightly different. So I'll go over tehdä just to sort of help people understand. So with tehdä, again, you remove the D and the R from the end, so you're left with te. There's a H left on the end. You need to swap that H with an E, and that will be the same with nähdä as well. So this is the only kind of slight exception. Usually you just remove the D and the A, and then you kind of leave everything as it is, at least in the present positive. Very easy to use, but in this case you're left with a H, and then it makes it a bit difficult to then use. So you swap the H with an E, and then you're left with te or nai with the nähdä example. So I'll go through tehdä. Minä teen, sinä teet, hän tekee. So you can see that it's slightly different with hän, and it's also different with he. So this is he or she is hän, and he is they. So hän tekee. I explained in the last video, there's something being used here called korpea vaihtelu. Typically, with words, when you conjugate them in the hän and the he version of the word, there will be some kind of korpea vaihtelu. Not always, but sometimes. This is something that you really just have to learn off by heart, but essentially it means making the word stronger or weaker, and you're making the sound in particular stronger or weaker. So hän tekee instead of hän tee. So hän tekee, me teemme, te teette, and he tekevät, he tekevät. So again, he tekevät, you've added the ko in there. And this is actually the same with nähdä as well. So there will be a korpea vaihtelu with nähdä too. So this shows you a slight difference with tehdä, just because there's a H there. But there's only two exceptions. Typically, they're all going to be used quite the same. So next, I'll go on the negative present tense, back to imeroida. So imeroida is the basic verb. Minä en imeroi, sinä et imeroi, hän ei imeroi, me emme imeroi, te ette imeroi, he eivät immeroi. So in this case, again, you remove the D and the A from immeroida, and then minä en immeroi, for example, the N is just a form of A, which means no. So you put no, which is kind of to signify it's a negative, or you're putting it in a negative form. Minä en immeroi, instead of putting the N at the end of immeroin, you put the N on the end of A. So minä en immeroi. Hän ei immeroi is a good example. Hän ei immeroi. The A is in the basic form. Hän ei immeroi. But with all the others, you put the personal ending on the end of the A. Okay, so minä en immeroi, sinä et immeroi, hän ei immeroi, etc. Again, this is super easy to use, the same as the present positive. So you just remove the D and the A, and then you put on a personal ending on the end of the A word. Next, we'll go on to the past tense or imperfecti. So the past tense imperfecti positive version. So minä immeroin, sinä immeroit, hän immeroi, me immeroimme, te immeroitte, he immeroivat. You can see this is exactly the same as the present and future tense presence. There's no distinction whatsoever. So in many cases, this makes it quite easy, but you will need to use context to show that you're talking about the past tense because it's the same as the present and the future. Typically, when you use imperfecti or past tense, you'll be adding an I. So essentially, you could look at it as like the I is already there. This will be the same as a verb like uida, minä uin. That can be used present, past and future, minä uin. You just need to use the context. However, there are a few small exceptions. So this is typically the rule. I'm having a look at some of the verbs now. So immeroida, kommentoida, uida. These will all be used in that kind of way. So minä uin, minä kommentoin. This can be any kind of tense, past, present and future. But a few exceptions. So I've got suoda. Suoda, there will be a slight exception. So because this verb ends in two vowels, which aren't oi, what you have to do with these two vowels is you have to swap them over. So you put the sua, you put the at the beginning, and then you swap the u, suoda, you swap the u for an I. So it's going to look like minä soin, sinä soit, hän soi, me soimme, te soitte, he soivat. Okay, and this will be the same with juoda as well. So minä join, sinä joit, hän joi, me joimme, te joitte, he joivat. Okay, so these will be the same. So when it ends in two vowels, which aren't oi, you have to create that oi kind of past tense look. So yeah, suoda and juoda, two examples. You swap the two vowels around, and then what's left on the end, you swap it with an I, and then you put on your personal ending. So as I said, minä soin. There are also a few other examples where you might need to do a little bit of work. So with tehtä, again, if you remember in the present tense, you would say minä teen. When you put it in the past tense, you're left with tii. That's the vartalo, the kind of base of the word. So when you say minä teen, you've got the two e's. To put it in the past tense, you need an I. So you just put an I. Technically, you'll swap those around still, and then you put the I on the end. So you'll say minä tein. Minä tein would be past tense. Minä teen, present tense or future. Minä tein, past tense. The same will apply to saada, minä saan. So you remove the DA as we have with all of the others, and you're left with minä saan. That would be the present tense. If you want to put it into the past tense, again you swap them over. Minä saan, saa is the vartalo. You swap that last A with an I, and then you say minä sain, minä sain. Okay, so that's how you say it in the past tense. This is positive past tense. Then the last conjugation I've got is negative past tense. These are all going to be exactly the same. So all you need to do in this case is you just remove the D and the A. You just remove the D and the A, and then you put on your endings. So you've got mina en immeroinet, siinä et immeroinet, hän ei immeroinet, me emme immeroineet, te ette immeroineet, he eivät immeroineet. So in this example, you've got the a, which signifies it's a negative. So mina en immeroinet, you put your personal ending on the end of the a rather than immeroi. And then the nut is used for the negative past tense, and also perfect tense and pluscuamperfecti, which is something that I'm not going to go into in this video. But in this case, when you use the negative past tense, you need the nut, net endings. And the difference is nut is just singular and net is monica or plural. So when there's multiple people involved in the action, it will be net. When there's one person involved in the action, it's nut, okay? But these will all be the same. So mina en suonut, for example, it's all used exactly the same. So this is how we use verb type 2 in all of these different conjugations. Quite simple. I should also say I'm probably not going to promise to make videos like super quickly. In an ideal world, I would make like one or two, or one every day or two. But I'm kind of struggling. It's quite nice weather at the moment, and I'm spending a lot of time outside. The editing is a little bit boring as well, so I'm not like I'm not really like super motivated. And also, I've got. I wanted to say I've got an interview as well coming up soon for ammattikoulu, which is like a little bit below university level. So I'm hoping to study like children's education and to study in the Finnish language. So I'll hopefully update people on that. So that's coming up in a few weeks. So I want to kind of put some focus towards that as well. So if I don't upload like super quickly, I apologize. But hopefully that explains, and I'm not like stopping. But anyway, thanks for watching the video and getting through to the end, and I hope to see you in the Verb Type 3 video soon.